You're watching HuffPost Live. I'm Nancy Red. Millions of Americans get nose jobs each year, but a staggering 15% of all those patients end up needing reconstructive surgery. Whether for cosmetic reasons or breathing difficulties, a botched nose job can cause lasting side effects, and not just cosmetically. Now, to tell us what we should know before we go under the knife, if we choose that option, we have the wonderful plastic surgeon, Dr. Rizk, along with one of his patients, Melissa Devano. And also joining our hangout, we have someone who's all too familiar with cosmetic procedures, Justin Jedlicka. He's a cosmetic surgery consultant who has himself gone under the knife over 100 times. Welcome, everyone.
Hi, great to see you.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you all as well. It's a good conversation to have because, Melissa, when you were 15 years old, did you think that you'd have to go through 3 nose jobs by the time you were 21 years old?
I had no idea. I was hopeful that it would be like a one-time thing, and it wasn't at all.
So what was going on when you were 15? Is this one of those things you're like, can I have a nose job for my birthday?
I was always pretty self-conscious of my nose. It had a big hump in it, a big bump in it, and I just always wanted one, and I finally kind of talked my mom into letting me get one, and then I found a surgeon, and it didn't work out at all.
So what happened with the first nose job?
The first one, the surgeon actually, the best way I could describe how my nose looked would be like Cindy Lou Who from The Grinch. He pushed it up, and he kind of took out the bridge of my nose completely. And yeah, I was really unhappy with the results.
Okay, so how long did it take between getting the first one and realizing there was something wrong to getting the second one? You were 15 when you got the first nose job where you weren't satisfied with the results.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I waited about a year and then I got the second one because I knew right away that something was wrong. As soon as he removed the bandage from my nose, I could tell that something wasn't right. It was crooked and pushed up immediately.
And what did the doctor say? Because it's obvious from those pictures, that's probably not what the patient wanted.
Right, yeah. He just told me that it was all swelling and that it was going to go down, but it didn't.
So did you find a second doctor?
No, I actually went back to the same doctor because he told me, oh, I can definitely fix this. And he said he would give me, do it for free. So he said, just come back in and I'll do it for you.
Oh, and so what happened with the second go-round? Were you satisfied then?
No, it actually came out almost worse. It was really bad. It was even more crooked, and it was still really pushed up, and I was really unhappy with the results.
And here's the thing. There's the cosmetic aspect of this, but there was also physical responses that your body was having from this different nose.
Right.
What were some of those issues?
Yeah, I couldn't breathe because my nose was basically collapsing and I couldn't even sleep at night. It was always really uncomfortable and hard to breathe.
And you also couldn't wear glasses, which is an interesting side effect.
Yeah, the bridge of since he took out so much of the bridge of my nose, when I went to get my glasses, the woman that worked there actually was like, I can't even fit glasses on your face because you don't have a bridge to put them on.
Which when you're in high school and college and studying, this is not ideal. If you need to wear glasses,
right?
Not being able to put it on your nose is a big problem.
Right.
So until you met Dr. Rizk, how did your botched nose job affect your life? Obviously, you couldn't sleep very well. You couldn't wear glasses. You weren't satisfied. How did it affect your self-esteem?
It was. I don't mean to get emotional, but it was really bad. I was teased a lot, and there were days that I couldn't even get out of bed. I couldn't look in the mirror without crying. It was really difficult. It really threw me into, honestly, a complete depression throughout that entire period of time.
And I'm so sorry, the teen years are difficult in general, and with this issue, I can only imagine how unbearable that the emotional duress must have been. What made you find Dr. Rizk? How did you two meet up?
After the second nose surgery, I did a lot of research online, and I saw a lot of different doctors' pages, and I saw all their different work. And I really was just blown away by Dr. Rizk's, the results of his procedures that he performed. The pictures on his website, they're outstanding. And I knew right away, actually, that he was going to be the doctor to help me.
So Dr. Rizk, when you get this email, I'm sure you get lots of emails from individuals who may not be satisfied with their results from previous surgeries. When you got Melissa's emails, when you saw the results of her 2 previous nose surgeries, what was your take?
Well, I really wanted to help her because to me it was not just a cosmetic bump, it was more of a deformity. And I understand the psychological implications, especially at her age of, to be, just put it bluntly, looking like you have a pig nose. And I couldn't imagine her going through what she was going through, and I really, really wanted to help her.
So let's show how your surgery ended up fixing, quote unquote, Melissa's nose. Let's take a look at the before and after. So before, Melissa, you were talking about you had this situation where you couldn't wear glasses. After, Dr. Rizk, what did you do? How did you, quote unquote, fix this?
I had to build her a new bridge. In addition to the bridge, her tip was collapsed. There was no cartilage in her tip area, so when she breathed in, the sides of her nose caved in. So I had to build her tip structure, a bridge, a new bridge, and I ended up using rib cartilage, which is from a rib bank, and I had to sculpt it to make it very aesthetically pleasing. I didn't want to go through her own rib because that's a very risky procedure for a young girl, and it has the risks of scarring and other implications. So the rib bank works excellent and actually, in my opinion, has a lower risk of warping. Your own rib can warp or twist more because it didn't have a chance to stay in liquid for a long period of time. So the rib bank has the rib cartilage, and I took the rib cartilage and I sculpted it into various pieces, and then I put it in different parts of her nose to give her a bridge as well as various areas of her tip support. And then the hardest part was bringing her tip down. And there was so much scar tissue from the previous surgeries. So I actually had to use the rib to push her tip structure down. And that's one of the most difficult operations in plastic surgery, is elongating a short nose.
Melissa, when I'm listening to this, it's terrifying listening to the procedure and what has to happen. Was this a very daunting experience for you? Were you worried about number 3 not working out with all of these complications, with the 2 previous ones, with the rib bank and all of the things that would need to be done?
I was nervous, but I wasn't hesitant to get it fixed because I knew it couldn't be worse than it already was. And by looking at his work, I just knew that he was going to be able to fix it. I don't know how. But of course, at the same time, it's a little, it's scary. It's terrifying because you don't want to have to go through what you've already went through again. You don't want to relive that all over.
And Justin, I want to get you in here because you've had over 100 cosmetic surgery procedures. I believe that is 120, right?
We're at 128 cosmetic procedures, not necessarily surgical procedures, but cosmetic procedures, correct, yes.
And
so I actually, like Elizabeth, I actually went through a series of revision surgeries as well. I went through 5 total surgeries with 4 revisions, obviously. So I know she had gone through 3 herself. So, for me, it wasn't that I felt like I had a bad nose job where I had a nasal collapse or anything that happened with my septum. It was a progression of changes through my years of growing up of what I wanted and what I had asked for. But I ended up going and using a lot of grafts as well that came from the cartilage in my ear. And we have some Gore-Tex that I had put in to build up the bridge in my nose as well. So, it can be a great surgery. I think that can definitely build people's confidence and self-esteem, but equally so, if you have a negative result, it's hard to amend. Better to get it right the first time around and really research your doctor.
And Dr. Rizk, I think that's the important part, what Justin just said. If you are inclined to get plastic surgery, many people are so stressed out about whatever the issue is that they just kind of go to the doctor that they find first in the yellow pages or see on a television commercial. And that's a really bad idea.
No, I recommend that you thoroughly research your doctor. There are certain guidelines. First, you want to make sure your doctor is board certified in facial plastic surgery if you're doing work on the face. Now, that does not guarantee a good result. You can have a board certified surgeon who gives you a very bad outcome because he's not technically adept. However, it is a guideline to use. You also want to see before and afters. If a doctor is not willing to show you before and afters, there is something wrong with that, because you can have a very good doctor who may have a different aesthetic than you. So you want to be on the same page aesthetically before you go into it. You're not going to buy a Picasso or a Miro without knowing what you're getting.
I think, yeah, finding someone who shares the same vision is really important, obviously, because if you're trying to talk a doctor into what your ideal of what beauty is for you, and they're not buying the Kool-Aid that you're selling, the probability is that you're going to get the outcome that they're most comfortable with and that they find realistic and beautiful to them, and you may be really unhappy. I mean, that was definitely something I went through with a lot of my consults, trying to find someone who really shared the same aesthetic vision.
And Melissa, when you're 15, you said that when you wanted the first nose job, when you finally convinced your mom, you went to the doctor that said he would perform the surgery on you, because many people won't perform surgery on a 15-year-old.
Right.
And so then you start to wonder, okay, who is the sketchy dude who will perform surgery on a 15-year-old?
Yeah, it was like I did as much research as I could, and like there was like all different I guess all different people had different perspectives on when the right age is to get a nose job. I don't know when it is. Like he said that the nose is like fully developed when you're 15. I mean, I really didn't know. I just believed him. And
well, that is true. For a female, the nose is fully developed at 14. For males, it's 15. So you could potentially have a rhinoplasty at 14 if you're a female. That's very true.
Yeah.
Well, so Justin, what about you? When did you get your first cosmetic surgery? I know you have procedures, you have surgeries. How old were you when you?
So I started looking for my doctors actually when I was 17 years old, and I went to 3 different consultations and settled on one doctor who really wanted to spend a lot of time with me previous to the surgery, and said, you know, I'm going to meet with you a minimum of 3 times before we actually go ahead with this procedure, because I want to make sure what I'm doing is what you're asking for and that we're on the same page here. So that's actually why I chose him, because he really was spending a lot of time with me. And so my parents wouldn't sign off on it when I was 17. They wouldn't allow me to do it. So I had to wait till I was 18, late age of legal consent. And I had planned everything previous to that. But obviously about 3 or 4 days after my 18th birthday, I decided to have my first nose job. And, you know, for all intents and purposes, it fixed the issues that, you know, really kind of plagued me as a young adolescent. But
what were some of those issues?
The tip of my nose was real bulbous. It was very amorphous. I'm prone. I have very thick skin on my nose. My nostrils were larger, so I needed an alar reduction.
Well, how did those aspects affect you? Because, you know, we all of us as teenagers, oh my gosh, I wanted everything fixed so quickly, and you know, time heals many wounds.
Well, I think, you know, also at that age, it's hard because you're coming into your own, you're trying to figure out who am I, and it's hard to sort of come to an acceptance of who you are and feel good about yourself. So you're always kind of second guessing yourself, I think, that age bracket. But no, it was something that I think socially held me back. It made me uncomfortable in situations. I mean, I was actually consistently in my pictures, I was always trying to like Photoshop things and change them, because I didn't really want to face that was what I actually looked like when I looked in the mirror. You know, for me, my nose was something that it really was something I thought about. I was very conscious of all the time.
Right.
So the thought of fixing it was something that I really probably had in my brain since the time I was 13 or 14. You know, I was idealized these celebrities that were able to afford kind of this luxury item. And
you know, how were you able to afford it? Because you're 18 years old, you're a kid. Your parents obviously aren't interested. How were you able to afford all of this cosmetic surgery, all of these cosmetic procedures?
Well, you know, I was at the time I was living in North Carolina, so it was a bit more affordable than, let's say, where I live now, New York, Chicago. But you know, it was something that for me was important, and so I was always very frugal. I was brought up in a lower income family, and so I was taught that you saved, and if you wanted it, you know, I didn't do a lot of the other things my friends did. They wanted to go buy their cars and buy their stereo systems and spend their money on their clothes, and instead I was drawn towards surgery. And you know, what was cool for me is that after my nose job initially, it sort of became a medium for me to create. So although my first nose job wasn't a failure, it was like I really wanted to see a couple more tweaks. I liked something a little more over stylized, cartoonish, I guess, you know, if you will. And that was also difficult to get doctors on the same page as me, being a young male looking for something that was very maybe a bit more feminine and definitely a bit more, like I said, over stylized, over scooped, overly pointed. But that's something I wanted, and to this day I still enjoy that look. But it was hard to get to get those doctors on the page to sort of understand where I was coming from. And that really was a serious want of mine and not just sort of a passing trend that I was going to be unhappy with as I was aging. That became also a challenge to sort of get doctors to sort of listen to me, because I think as a female, it's a little more socially accepted to have plastic surgery. I mean, I work a lot now with pairing people with doctors and specialists so that, you know, they have an optimal outcome the first time around, because it is so much harder on revisions with all the scar tissue to sort of work with that. And it's harder to sort of say how the body is going to heal when it's already been worked on. So, you know, you always take a much bigger chance of causing a problem actually than fixing something. I mean, it's sort of the way I found it over the years with revisions, not just on my nose, but on other body parts as well. So, I mean, spend a little bit of extra money to use somebody like me to help sort of structure where people go. I think it can help take out some of that guesswork that they might otherwise have to go through a process like me or Elizabeth have.
And I do think that's an interesting point that you made. Many individuals who are going for cosmetic surgeries or cosmetic procedures want the cartoonish look. You want more of the anime or the more of the surreal look. Melissa, that's not what you were going for at all.
No.
You just wanted a nose that you were pleased with. In retrospect, if you could go back in time, what would you tell 15-year-old Melissa?
I mean, I would tell her I wouldn't change getting the surgery done. I would change the doctor that I chose to do the surgery. I mean, I would tell her that I don't know. I guess I would tell her that, like, I mean, it's something that if it's going to boost her self-esteem, to still do it. I mean, a lot of people always say that, like, you have to just be happy with who you are and stuff. And, like, I agree with that. I do. Like, I truly do believe in that. But it's so hard coming from a standpoint where when you look in the mirror, you just can't handle how you look, you know? So I mean, I would definitely tell her, though, like, it's something to do if it would make her feel better.
Well, Dr. Rizk, when we're talking about whether it makes you feel better or what the person is or what their needs are, one of the things Justin mentioned, his very first cosmetic doctor, before doing anything, made him meet 3 times to ensure that the plans were what he wanted. Do you think many doctors are as diligent about the well-being of their patients?
I don't think many doctors would meet 3 times. I like to meet at least twice, just to be sure that that's what they want. Usually I meet once, and then I meet after the patient gets the CAT scan or, you know, further testing to look at the structure of the nose internally to see whether there's, you know, internal anomalies that also need to be addressed. But I think that it's important to at least be sure that on different occasions that's what the patient wants.
Absolutely. And Justin, obviously, your first nose job at 18 turned into not only a fun lifetime.
A lifetime of surgeries.
But also a career for you. And do you feel that it's one of those things, what I found with some of my friends is it becomes very addicting. Like once you've done something once, it's like everything else you're able to scrutinize more. And you look and you say, well, there's something a little off about that. Maybe I should get that fixed. Do you feel like you become hypersensitive to all of the pseudo imperfections in the average body?
I mean, I think it can be verbalized either way, right? You know, I as an artist, I think I've always like loved painting and sculpting, and I used to own a full painting company where I worked for people on a private level, and I did painting. And you're always praised for having an eye for detail at that point. As I think plastic surgeons themselves, people who can see asymmetries and things like that. So to say that that's a negative and to say, do I overly scrutinize myself? I mean, I've always thought it to be one of my best attributes that I do have an eye for detail. I mean, I think having one surgery, really, it did change my perspective on the power I had over myself, over the way people perceived me, and over the way I could carry myself. I think the biggest change I expected from it was that other people would receive me differently, and that's not actually what I found to be true. The biggest change that I found after my surgery was that I felt more confident in myself, and other people really didn't notice the change. And so, as odd as that sounds, it really was something that I did solely for myself and not for other people. And with each continuing surgery that I've had or procedure that I've had, it's that same sort of ideal for me, where the motivations are because it's a change that I'm looking for, that I'm looking to see in the mirror. And if other people don't like it, I really don't care. But I do think that having that control and that power over yourself and realizing that you do have the ability to sort of tweak and curtail things the same as you were your hair color, your makeup, your clothing, all of those things are expressions of yourself. And I view my appearance as sort of a canvas to be able to do the same thing.
Well, I heard that your canvas recently got another upgrade. What was the last cosmetic surgery that you actually went under the knife for?
Well, I devised a 3-headed deltoid implant that, to my knowledge, no one else in the world has done. And so the idea was that I would do anterior, posterior, and lateral delt. So the shoulder muscle is actually 3 parts. And I wanted to augment all 3 sections with custom implants. So it was a long process. I just had my 4th surgery on my shoulder as my 3rd revision. And, you know, I ended up having to design my own pieces. I literally pick everything from the texture. I design them to the 10th of the centimeter. I pick out the fill on them because obviously they're sort of like a gel fill, but they're still solid rubber where they can't actually ooze through. It's a cohesive silicone.
Let's check it out. Let's check it out. And Dr. Rizk, okay. I want to know your opinion on his new work.
Okay, even though I'm a facial guy, I will give my opinion.
That's true. That is important to note that hopefully that's the important part, Dr. Rizk. Hopefully your doctor has a specialty, and it's not a whole body doctor.
Definitely, I think
specialize in the face only, but
it's important to find someone I think that has a passion either for the detail or of the face. And a lot of the guys who just are face guys, they have any interest in doing body work. And a lot of the body guys really don't spend a ton of time on the face, although they may offer it. I mean, the overhead I think is crazy high for them, but unfortunately, I don't give any one doctor 100% referral on all that stuff because I just think it's better to pick someone who really has a passion for one or the other. But so like I just redone this whole front piece. The anterior piece here that comes up to the clavicle, and then this the middle piece is the lateral delt, and then this back section here, so that's the posterior delt. So when you go like this, you can see all 3 pieces here. So it's front, middle, and back.
I don't think it's fascinating.
It's all underarm.
Cosmetic surgery means different things to different people. And for Justin, it's a journey into who he is. For Melissa, the first 2 didn't go so well, but arguably you could say that Dr. Rizk kind of was a lifesaver for you and help you. Your teen years might not have been that great, but your 20s you can go into confidently.
Yeah, definitely. I always say that Dr. Rizk, he didn't give me my confidence back. He gave me confidence that I never had in the first place. So, I mean, he really did save my life, and I cannot even thank him enough for that.
Well, we can thank all of you
I'm so happy for you.
And Dr. Rizk is very happy. And for those of you who might be wondering if there's something that they could work on themselves, the information on our guest is in our resource well, which is underneath this video screen. And for more information, make sure you check that out and check out what's coming up next, because as you know, here at HuffPost Live, the conversation always continues.